And then we will break down what's happening there, probably even do some overdrive here with Joe Biggs. Truly over the top. Okay, this is Donetsk, Ukraine. Joe Biggs, give me your first approximation and take on this, and then I'll go over it. Russia deploying tactical nuke arms to Crimea. That's from October last year. Bill Gertz, high-level sources. And that guy's got amazing sources. That's Washington Times. NATO's tactical nuclear weapons, again, are being moved into that area. Does Russia think their new nuclear weapons could win a war? That's Forbes. Newsweek, Russia has threatened nuclear attack, says Ukraine defense minister. Well, yeah, they've said if you move armor in up against our border, we reserve the right to use tactical nukes. No longer unthinkable should U.S. ready for limited nuclear war. That's out of defense. We have the military and NATO making incredible statements about ready for war with Russia. Top U.S. generals have been making just very hawkish statements. We've got analysts saying this is the most dangerous it's ever been. I've seen chemical plants blow up growing up in Texas. I've seen them on the news. I've seen them in the distance when I was visiting family in Houston, 20, 30 miles away. I saw it doesn't go boom with a perfect white-hot flash wave and then stop. It just doesn't look like any explosion I've ever seen. Joe, you've seen a lot of explosions. We're going to play this footage for TV viewers and radio listeners right now. This happened Sunday in Ukraine, and we'll get your take on it. Here it is. This is the footage of the explosion. And, again, we're going to give folks the audio of that. We're going to queue up the raw footage from Sunday. And as soon as this came out, Joe got it off Ukrainian television as soon as this came out, and we were able to play it. And again, this was played yesterday. Here it is with audio.
Охуеть.
We've all seen hundreds of clips of what atomic bombs look like. And then here's the flash shockwave. Guys miles away. Houses miles away were on fire. 15 miles away. And we'll just keep playing that in the background as a loop a few more times. Joe, what's your take on all this?
So Sunday night, I get a message, a link sent to me on Facebook, says, you got to check this out. I looked at the video, opened it up, and I see this explosion. I'm like, wow, what is this? I start digging into it. When I found the actual raw link on YouTube, it had just been put up maybe 5 to 10 minutes prior, only had 5 views on it. I was like, all right, I've got to get to work. We got to do something with this. This is unbelievable.
You called me and said, can I do this?
Yeah. And when I got back to the office, I figured I'd check some of the mainstream sites to see if anybody was talking about this, because that's huge. That's a giant explosion.
It's a telltale. Still, they're not reporting on it hardly.
Yeah. Well, Sunday, I guess, people don't want to interrupt the Grammys with, small talk like this with explosions going on in Ukraine. I mean, that's all I could find on anything, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Fox, CNN, BBC, whatever it was. Everybody wanted to talk about the Grammys. Nobody was talking about this. Now they are today. And
did you ever see anything in Iraq and Afghanistan, explosions that looked anything like that?
I've seen something that looked that big but didn't have a shockwave like that. I mean, that footage, it made my heart thump just watching. I was like, oh, my God, I hope that a nuke didn't go off. I hope there's not a lot of people.
Because it knocks the people over that are miles away when it comes through.
I mean, the pictures later in that area, you could see buildings were just like the windows were busted out. There was like parts of the building that were cracked and things like that. So, I mean, that was a huge explosion.
And we looked, where's the footage of this place?
Yeah.
I mean, where's the crater? It's not on the news of what happened to this supposed plant. And they're saying a cigarette did it.
Yeah. So I asked the question, did a nuke go off in Ukraine? And a lot of trolls came out, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's not a nuke, but we have the capability of what's called a tactical nuclear weapon, which is a smaller weapon that will not create as much collateral damage, like a strategic nuclear weapon. A strategic nuclear weapon pretty much renders anybody not being able to fight back. It demolishes the buildings and all that. So this would be what I thought a smaller, and that's what you even said too, it could be a tactical nuclear weapon. So I don't see the problem.
Well, they've got them now that are just fired from mortars. The stuff they had back in the 50s and 60s, like the Davy Crockett, was a 2-man team. and it was meant in Eastern Europe. If the Russians poured across an overwhelming force, you just hit them with this. The issue is the Russians have been threatening to use these in state-run media, but Russia was in control of this area, I'm told. But then what's the Ukrainian government saying?
Well, right now they're saying Kiev has received threats of nuclear retaliation from Russia through unofficial channels if it continues to fight pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Valery Helite, and it says the Russian side has threatened on several occasions across the unofficial channels that in the case of continued resistance, they are ready to use a tactical nuclear weapon against us.
So we need to just discuss that fact. I mean, that's a big escalation right there.
Yeah. So,
what do you think's going on?
It seems like someone in Ukraine probably did this, and they want to blame it on Russia to spark something up. It seems a little odd to me.
And you've been researching it. It's clear that this was a Russian-held plant?
Well, in Donetsk, there's a good bit of those people there as well. But at this point in time, I'm not quite sure. I'm still trying to find out. A lot of the stuff's closed down. A lot of people aren't.
Well, I know there's no media on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think something like this would be a bigger deal.
I'm trying to dig as much as I can, and it's hard to get a lot of, particulars.
Well, what is Russia today saying? What are the Russians saying?
Well, the Russians are saying right now that they think that there was an artillery strike that came in, and that's what hit it. Well, then you have the DNR, which is the Donetsk People's Republic, who came out today and just said that they found what was remnants of a Toka-U, which is an actual piece that is a warhead. It shoots a warhead that could be chemical, nuclear, or EMP. And that's what they found today. And that's a medium-range or short-range mobile missile launcher. Yeah.
We'll be right back. Let's stay right there. Donetsk is a major city in eastern Ukraine, in the Crimea region, and they've been having major battles there between the Russian separatist and the Ukrainian military. And it's clear that supposedly rebels want to drive the Ukrainian forces out of this area. The Russians have been threatening to use tactical nuclear weapons. This would be a clear message. I'm not saying that's what it is, but there's been so much talk on both sides about this. And then you've got McCain running around saying it's time to have war in the news directly with Russia. And Russia says if they start fighting U.S. or NATO forces directly, that they're not going to fight the armor. They're just going to nuke it. And then that's how I've said over and over again, a nuclear war could start. That's what the analysts say. They're in the news today, analysts, diplomats saying the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. They use attack, or the West uses attack, a weapon, getting overrun. Remember during the Pristina situation, during the Kosovo War, the Russians landed at the Pristina airport and took it over. And then they ordered the head of NATO to attack the Russians. And the head general, who was British, said, I will not start World War III, and didn't. And he said, the Russians have always had an interest in this country. I'm not doing it. Well, now they may have generals that are willing to do it. And the thing is, the Russians have said, we will launch these weapons at you. So whether this is a bomb going off or not, I keep saying a bomb because a lot of these tacticals are very primitive. It fires like a plutonium bullet into a ball of uranium. Those are some of those more simpler weapons. And that looks like the atomic bomb blast I've seen over and over again. When you see that first shock of the atoms and that first wave of golden light, that's not what conventional explosives or chemicals do. They expand slowly compared to fissionable material. And I'm not a nuclear physicist. I've just studied this. It looks bad, Joe.
Yeah. Well, the thing is if one person starts using a strategic nuke or a tactical nuke, and then the other one uses a tactical nuke, then that leads into strategical nuke.
It escalates. First they use the little ones, and
then they go to the bigger, and then they wipe it out, and then it gets out of hand. And then you've got people, not only does Russia have this capability, but Pakistan has this kind of capability. Other people around here are having
India.
That. Yeah. So it says outside the U.S., both established and emergency nuclear powers increasingly see nuclear weapons as weapons that can be used in a controlled, limited, and strategically useful fashion.
See, and again, it's all over the news. Russia and the U.S. keep saying, oh, it's no big deal to use nukes now. Keep going.
Barry Watson, analyst with the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, says Russia has not only developed new relatively low-yield tactical nukes, but also routinely war-game their use to stop both NATO and Chinese conventional forces should they overrun Moscow's feeble post-Soviet military. And like you said,
that's right, because they've only got 160 million people and a 500,000 man army compared to China with 3 or 4 million, the U.S. with 1 million. They're saying they're betting everything on tactical nukes.
Yeah. And like I said, Pakistan has developed the tactical nukes to stop India's much larger military. which also would have the capability as well, and Iran is seeking this out. So you get tactical nukes being fired, then it escalates, and everyone's just trying to push buttons to see who's got the bigger cojones to do it.
And the real weapon is a remote control nuke mines, atomic mines, because they'll put those out. They have spotters by radio or sat phone now. The tank brigades come into the area, and you just detonate right in the middle of them, take them all out.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just, it's not a good game to play, and they're trying to start something. It says Russia is moving tactical nuclear weapon systems into recently annexed Crimea, while the Obama administration is backing informal talks aimed at cutting U.S. tactical nuclear deployments in Europe, and that's the Washington Free Beacon. 3 senior House Republican leaders wrote to President Obama 2 weeks ago warning that Moscow will deploy nuclear missiles and bombers armed with long-range air-launched cruise missiles into occupied Ukraine territory.
And they've now been patrolling even the edge of our skies.
Yeah.
Because of the provocation, because the West is moving its forces up against Russia.
Yeah.
And I'm not lionizing Russia, but we're starting it.
Yeah.
We're starting it. And, I mean, it was about 2 months ago that NATO general, he's a U.S. general, I forget his name, he gets up in his little Air Force uniform and he goes, we're ready to take on the Russians. I mean, nobody ever talked like that before. Yeah. I mean, we're ready to have a war, no big deal. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not a bunch of Iraqis that we're fighting here, folks, with AK-47s. Final segment, we're in overdrive. Sorry to the other callers, we're just out of time. Joe, I've been ranting here. I want you to be able to make other points about this. I mean, we've got all the mainstream news articles, Jane's Weapons Quarterly, Washington Times, Forbes, Newsweek, Russia threatens nuclear attacks. I mean, this is all going on here. The Russians are saying it. I don't just believe Newsweek. Whenever the West started a war with Russia in Georgia in 2008, they rolled nukes in with these medium-range and short-range launchers and said, we're going to start nuking you.
Yeah.
And the NATO troops got back on their airplanes and left. What is NATO playing with here? And then let's get into these reports of the wreckage they found of the missile that may have carried the weapon.
Well, it seems like they're ramping the American people up to get ready back, to get that war face on. You see the American Sniper movies coming out. You see the American public getting back into that. Yeah, we're ready to fight. We're America. We can do anything. But for the past few years, the way everyone looks at it, even Americans are looking at these wars as garbage. Iraq was a waste of time. Afghanistan, a waste of time. All of this stuff. So a lot of people have been on the down. But now we have all these new movies coming out. The TV shows are talking about war. Everyone's talking about it.
It's always about Russia.
Yeah, and you start seeing everybody like, I am an American. Oh, yeah. And everyone's all pumped up, and all these books are coming out from Navy SEALs and things like that. It seems like they're trying to use this propaganda to get the American public back in the mind.
And in books, video games, movies, House of Cards, it's all Russia.
Yep.
The whole new House of Cards is about Russia.
The video games.
China's our buddy in House of Cards, but Russia, they're bad.
Yeah. It seems like they're trying to ramp up the American people to get them behind what's going to be coming up. And now we see all this stuff starting to happen over there as well.
Well, what frustrates me, Joe, is that Russia is actually fighting radical Islam. And the West is going to use that against them as well. I mean, the whole world's really ganged up on Russia.
Yeah.
And I even run into people I know who know and listen to the show, and they go, yeah, but the Russians are bad. Let's kick their butt. It's like this mindlessness. I'm sorry. I mean, our own military got chewed up trying to hold down the countries you were in. Can you imagine, even if Russia is in trouble, trying to mess with a country that has all these special forces and all these spies and all these weapons and special teams to poison people? And I mean, I think Washington's biting off more than they can chew here.
Yeah, and I don't think Putin's someone that's going to be willing to back down from using something like that to use.
Well, they're going to turn loose their spies, too.
Yeah.
It's going to get really bad, Joe.
Well, hopefully not. I hope the people don't buy into this junk that's being fed into the mainstream media every day. How they're coming out saying, if you don't back all this stuff, that you're not American. We need to take a step back and look at what's really going on. And nuclear war, it's not just going to affect that area. It's going to affect the entire planet. People need to get off their high horse and.
Well, that's what we've got to check is local radiation meters at local colleges. If they're suddenly not reporting as of yesterday, that means that they've shut it down. And we've caught them doing this before when there's been leaks at power plants. We'll get a report, then suddenly the meters around it won't be reading. It'll say inoperable. We need to check into that, Joe. Right. And we need to talk to some of our sources in Europe and some of the agencies that are private that monitor radiation and see if isotopes associated with atomic weapons, because that's what these frogs are usually, atomic. Most tacticals are not hydrogen. We need to look into this and see if we have the isotopes from Russian or NATO atomics.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. Earlier today, too, DNR News is the Don't Test People's Republic. They came out saying that they indeed found the shellings. They found evidence of the rounds that were being used, but they weren't able to get to it until today. Yesterday, they said that chemical plant area was continuously hit.
And that's a pro-Russian group, isn't it?
Yes. So they're saying they think
So they're saying it's the Ukrainians doing it.
Yes. So they think that they were trying to continuously hit that chemical area to destroy any evidence of what the rounds that were being used. And like I said, it's what's called the OTR-21 Tochka, which is a Scarab missile, and the warhead can shoot off a chemical or 100 kiloton nuclear warhead, EMP or fragmentation filling. But that's what they are finding out there now as of today, or tonight, I should say.
Well, we're just get everybody on this. Let's dig into it. Try to find out exactly what's happening. It may be a chemical explosion. It just looks really suspicious.
It's just weird, though. You think, though, they said there was a weapons cache in that area.
Hold on. Let's go even further into overdrive. I want you to be able to finish. Going into the fourth hour live here, Joe Biggs is sitting next to me. And, of course, Joe, I've seen you in some of the Rolling Stone articles and Esquire articles and stuff when they had embeds with you. Army Times, you name it. You loading and preparing the big warheads, the big shells.
155 HE.
The 155 HE. We probably Google Joe Biggs artillery and actually pull up those photos so you know artillery. We were just talking during the break. Look, the Russians say they'll use tactical nuclear weapons. It looks like one. You see this orange, white, hot wave go out, and then you see the explosion in a mushroom cloud. When I've seen atomic shut off, that's what it sends out. I mean, I've just never seen an explosion where it's only one wave of the explosion and its energy. It looks like it's atomic in nature. I mean, maybe it's something else. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's just keep playing that. Joe, you said you've never seen any artillery like that or any explosion that comes close to that?
I fired 119ers, 198s, M777 Alpha 2 howitzers, all kinds of different rounds, Excalibur rounds, which is a rocket-propelled, GPS-assisted projectile. I fired so many different artillery rounds. I've never seen an explosion like that. That seems like that was something that was detonated from that spot. Because you would think from an artillery round hitting like that, it would hit and then send off fragments, and then it would be multiple explosions. This is more centralized in one area, and it's one perfect explosion from that area. That's why it doesn't resemble anything like I've ever seen in artillery on a target.
And when you watch atomic bombs go off, in fact, Jacobson's got a bunch of them on tape as I was putting them in a film, some of the first atomic tests, when the film footage is up close, it first flashes, and then you see the radiation go out like a bubble or a force field, and then the mushroom cloud comes out of that.
Yeah.
That's what you see in this footage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's a gas plant or a chemical plant, and it blows up, and it's like a big orange, thick, black, red explosion. It's bzz, bzz, it looks atomic. I'm telling you, it's suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have to question it. That's why we have to do the digging here, because like you said, mainstream media isn't really paying attention to this. Everyone's more obsessed with the Grammys and what new show is going to come out and Better Call Saul and all these different programs that are out.
If it was atomic by the Russians or by Ukraine, it's meant to send a message. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they know mainstream won't be told about it. What do you think the message is if indeed it was a tactical weapon and who would use it?
Well, to say, hey, we're not afraid to use them, obviously, but it's just, like you said,
that's how you would use it first, was kind of in the middle of nowhere or on a strategic location, just to say, hey.
Well, that's why a tactical nuke, that's the purpose of one, so there's not all that huge collateral damage, to show you the awesome power of what it is, so people can go like, oh my God, this is mind-blowing, but it doesn't send all that damage. It's a warning.
Let's watch that footage one more time. If you're a radio listener, it's on Infowars.com. It's in Joe Biggs' video. Give folks the title of your video.
The title of the video was, did a nuclear weapon go off or was a nuke used in Ukraine? It's around 300,000 views right now in the past day and a half.
Now let's watch this shockwave. How many miles is that away?
15 miles from what I was told. And how quickly it got to him.
Listen to it breaking everything when it hits. Let's show this again. Let's back it up again one more time. Man, that looks like an atomic bomb.
I know.
I mean, you see how there's that pattern first?
Mm-hmm.
That I've only seen that with atomics. Very suspicious.
Yeah, it's something we'll definitely be looking into for...
Have you sent this out to any of your Army buddies that were in the nuke corps? We need to get this looked at by experts.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I put it out on Facebook, and I've had a lot of my military buddies, comment back saying that definitely looks like a nuke to them. But I'll definitely look into some of my NBC guys, nuclear, biological, chemical guys who are in that MOS.
Well, I know Jacobson's back there, and he's the one that's got all these nuke clips we even sent off to the government to get from their archives years ago. And, I mean, we've got a bunch of them where they detonate them, and it's exactly the same deal. It's like a red force field.
Yeah.
In fact, Dew knows what I'm talking about. I call it the force field nukes because we use it on TV all the time. I mean, it looks just like that, Joe.
I mean, it's just, like you said, bubbled out.
That's a uranium bomb with a plutonium bullet. Because I've studied it so much, that's what they look like a low yield, where it doesn't get the full fission, where it doesn't fully detonate. Because with these small ones, they just can't get them to fully detonate. I mean, it doesn't, achieve maximum explosion for the amount of radioactive stuff they've got. Because, I guess the larger hydrogen bombs and then of course they've got all the different ones like the systems that are used to just put out radiation, neutron bombs, which they supposedly killed in 79. That's not true. They've got a huge program of neutron bombs just here in the U.S. alone. But the more high-tech, high-yield, it was a bunch of jacketed, perfectly cut plastic explosives. Okay, and is that from Ukrainian or Russian news? Looks like Ukrainian. Well, that is a big crater.
I mean, there seems to just be this huge blackout in media coverage of what's going on over there. For a while we heard there was only 5,000 casualties. Now they're saying 50,000 of what's going on. No one's really talking about this, and it's being just swept under the rug here in America.
That is a giant crater.
Yeah. There's no artillery round that's going to be doing that.
And all the trees are... But, I mean, where's the plant? I mean, that looks like what you see when a bomb's gone off, see?
Yeah.
Well, what chemical would there be? Where's the wreckage if it was a chemical plant that did that?
I know. I don't see anything in that footage. That's, like I said, it's so hard to get any kind of information about what's going on over there. It seems like there's this media blackout. It's hard to dig to find anything on what's going on over there.
Well, it shows media blackout power because we never said that there was probably a huge epidemic of Ebola going on here in the United States, but we said we've got medical doctors by name. We had them on, saying that they've been ordered to cover it up. And then it came out in like AP and stuff last week. Just, oh, yeah, in New York and New Jersey, they've been ordered to cover it up and they're disappearing people. I mean, that's news in and of itself that they can disappear people. Yeah, where are they going?
Fort Monmouth in New Jersey.
I mean, maybe they don't even have Ebola. The point is, why are they disappearing them?
Yeah.
Forbes said they were at the meeting and they were told to cover up.
We're talking about how they're doing that down at the border as well.
Yeah, so we don't know. It just looks like an atomic bomb to me. That just so happens what tactical weapons are.
Yep. There's nothing wrong with questioning what's happening and trying to look into what we see and analyze it.
Well, if that is the real crater, this is pure bull because there's not even
remnants of a plant anywhere.
I mean, that's a field, which is what the Russians would do as a warning. It's in the middle of a forest. There's a chemical plant that looks like about 2 miles away.
What's funny, when you look at Google Maps of the area where they're saying the chemical plant is, it says closed over it. When you scroll over it, over that area on Google Maps. That's all it says over it. It doesn't say the name of the plant anymore. It just says closed.
I smell a rat. What do you think's going on?
Something's going on. Like I said, with what's happening here in the media, hyping people up, it's leading to something. It seems like they're trying to push for another war. And just like
John McCain said, send U.S. troops to fight. Yep. Let's go fight the Russians. That's a wonderful idea.
That's what he's all about. This guy's a bloodthirsty warmonger.
Well, what he wants is that money. The vice president's son took over the largest gas company in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His stake in it is about $4 billion if he tries to cash out.
Yeah.
He just got out of college. Got to be a nice job, huh?
Yeah. That young with that kind of money, he's going to go corrupt very quickly.
Talk about nepotism, though. I mean, how does the vice president get away with putting his son in an ownership position in what was a state-run thing connected to the Russians?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you just go, here's half the gas of Ukraine and more to you?
Yeah. It's a big passing of a torch right there.
There it is. Son of U.S. VP Joe Biden appointed to board of major Ukrainian gas company. You read deeper, it's an ownership position just worth unbelievable billions and billions and billions and billions. Look at him. It's just all a sick joke. A totally sick joke, Joe. Well, we'll continue to dig into this on the Nightly News, 7 o'clock tonight Central. Anything else, Joe?
Negative. That's it.
Let's get a hold of some nuclear physicists. Let's get a hold of some atomic weapons experts. Maybe somebody can email us and say, here's an example of a gas plant or another plant blowing up where it looks like this.
Yeah. Try to do some comparing.
Because they'll go boom, 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 explode. Yeah,
exactly.
Big.
Because it would be,
but it doesn't go bzzz, and then there's an explosion.
Yeah, there would be multiple.
That's what an A-bomb does is bzzz, and then the explosion.
That's what I was saying. If they hit a weapons cache, or if they hit a chemical plant, there would be separate explosions within that. That's why it looks like it's a centralized. Something was placed there to make that go off. There was nothing.
Not fired.
Yeah, nothing was fired at it. I don't.
Because it was such a symmetrical explosion.
Yeah. So definitely needs some digging into.
What about a fuel air bomb? I know that some of those were dropped in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Would they do something like that?
Possibly.
Guys, pull up a fuel air bomb as we end and go to break. Maybe we can show a fuel air bomb going up. I don't think a fuel air bomb's that big.
I don't think it would be that big, but it would be a substantial size. But, I mean, like I said, it's not going to send a shockwave 15 miles out, I don't think.
For those who don't know, it fills up a whole C-130. They drop the back, roll it out, then it detonates, about 500 feet off the ground? And
correct.
And I guess what it's good for is sucking the air out of everybody's lungs, even a half mile down.
Mm-hmm.
So it sucks all the oxygen out.
Yep.
There's a fuel air going off. All right, Len, that's not even a very big one. All right, Joe. Well, thank you. Good job getting on this because, hey, it's very fair to ask, was an atomic used? Because this is a theater where the Russians say they'll use them.
Yeah, exactly.
And the West says they'll use them, so we need to look at it because it's certainly a wake-up call for people. Or we need to know what was at that chemical plant and why there's nothing there now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Joe Biggs, thank you so much. We're out of time.